Hazbin Hotel Fanfiction Corner presents Dirty Dealings. This fan-made work was wrote for you by InuHalfDemon. It is freely available for reading on the archive of our own website. The rating for this reading work is M for mature, for dark themes involving violence, sexual content, and language. Readers and listeners, take care. Chapter 1. The Deal. June 25th, 1950. New Orleans, Louisiana. She knew not to go into the forest. She knew even in the light of day it held its monsters. Now, despite knowing this, in the fading half-moon's light, she was running deep into its depths. Branches grabbed and tore at her, ripping at her clothes and tearing at her skin. Desperate, she wiped away at the tears that were streaming, blurring her vision. Clouds skirted the black of night, dimming what was left of the dwindling moonlight even more. Her chest flared painfully from her flight, air rasping sharply into her lungs with each gasp. Stumbling, her feet slid into bog, warm, swampy water sliding over her knees and threatening to hold her fast to the sucking mud beneath. She struggled to keep her momentum, half crawling up a slick bank of reeds and muck. Trembling, she paused, pulling air into her burning lungs, feeling the throbbing ache of muscles all over. Pinpricks of light danced and sparked as, blinking, she shakily rose from her knees and looked around. She couldn't run anymore. She was very near to passing out as it was. Blinking again, she waited for the small bursts of light to separate themselves from the soft glow of skittering fireflies. A cool breeze crept through the swamp, and she felt goosebumps crawl across her skin, the hair on the back of her neck rising like hackles. A low groan came from the nearly complete darkness. A mass of shadows moved just beyond the bog, something both solid and hulking, but spindly and frighteningly long in limb. Feeling all strength leave her body, she sunk to her knees, staring at the stark form that shifted against the dark of night. It was impossible to make out what was lurking directly before her, but she could hear the soft tearing of flesh, the snapping of bones. An involuntary noise crept from her throat, and the thing's form jerked, bright green eyes burning through the darkness to rest on her. Her heart was in her throat. Every part of her recoiled from whatever this thing was. But this was it, her last chance. You're a demon, she gulped, steadying her voice. I've come to make a deal. The thing made no move, its green eyes smoldering. She wasn't sure if it was even breathing. Clenching her fist, she screamed at it. Well, what are you waiting for? The black mass shifted, moving ever so slightly toward her. Parts of the unnatural darkness caught a sliver of moonlight, and she caught a quick impression of massive antlers, moving among the limbs of surrounding trees. Before she could fathom more, a cool blackness enveloped her into nothing. Sounds of the swamp came to her first. The creaking of crickets, the croaking of frogs, the soft buzz and fizz of dragonflies, the soft cooing of an owl, somewhere beyond all of it. A flare of light shocked her eyesight, and she blinked blindly against the blaze. A flame quickly dimmed, a surreal candle casting light across a small bog meadow. The candle occupied an antique tea table that stood with 2 chairs beside it. Sitting at the table, sipping at his steaming teacup, was a man? No, he wasn't a man. He was very tall and long-limbed. He wore a vibrant red, pinstripe suit with stark black dress pants, and the nicest shoes she had ever seen. Soft candlelight danced from a monocle resting at his right eye. Stranger still, he had red and black hair, styled rather uniquely into a bizarre haircut. He hummed softly to himself as he sipped his tea, seemingly unbothered by her quiet staring. She blinked rapidly, trying to make out the odd hat he was wearing when he spoke. My apologies, my dear. My deepest apologies. You caught me in the midst of a feed. The midst of dinner. Not my usual first impression I like for my potential clients to have of me, I assure you. His voice crackled like it was being played from a radio. While he was talking, she realized he was wearing no hat. Atop of his head were what looked to be a pair of long ears, and even more absurd, a small pair of antlers. The ears swept smoothly with his movements, and were even expressive in their placements. They were just like the ears and antlers of a deer. Most disconcerting, though, was his smile. He cocked his head, the smile growing bigger across his face. You are a potential client, aren't you? He said it like he was enjoying some private joke. She shivered. Oh, where are my manners tonight? He exclaimed. You'll catch cold, darling. Here. His fingers snapped. There were bright sparks of green, and she suddenly was dressed with dry, warm clothes, and a hot cup of tea appeared at the opposite end of the small table, near the empty chair. Rising, he pulled the chair out for her, sweeping his arm dramatically to invite her to sit. Slowly, she went to the chair. He slid it smoothly underneath her before going back to his own chair. Please, enjoy, he continued to smile, going back to his tea. Her hand shook as she took the hot cup in her hands. It radiated heat and promised warmth. Bringing it to her lips, she sipped. Instantly, she felt her veins flare with a comforting heat, and a burst of flavor flooded her mouth. I hope I got the spices right, he conversed. The senses tend to get a little muddled when, well... He shrugged, still smiling like he found humor in some subtle punchline. So, he said from his cup, you want to make a deal? Yes, she breathed. Interesting. He smiled, almost to himself. Can't say that I'm not terribly curious as to what you might have in mind. He smiled fully at her now. She started. I'm not sure how to begin. He raised his eyebrows but said nothing, waiting. I need more time, she breathed, waiting for him to respond. When she didn't, she continued. So much of my life, it's been wasted. I haven't gotten to do any of the things I've needed to. She was having trouble finding the words. I just can't continue living the life I am now. I see, his smile, glaring back at her. What terms have you considered? She was confused by the question briefly, then realizing what he was asking, she dug into a pocket and was relieved to find it still within her possession. Carefully, she pulled the smooth wooden ring into the light of the candle and slid it toward him. Still smiling, he watched her place the ring before him. Then looking at her, he laughed lightly. Oh, I'm afraid this won't do. He picked the ring up between his index finger and thumb. His smile never faltering, his eyes tightened, and the ring burst into a lick of green flame before disappearing completely. Mere trinkets are of little use to me, she gasped, watching her one prized possession winking out of existence completely. Swallowing, she persisted. What terms would you prefer? His eyes softened, his smile never leaving his lips. I've had my hand in a great many sort of deals, he assured her. As long as the terms are equally rewarding to both parties, I'll agree to just about anything. Except, he emphasized, I do not deal in sexual favors. I find them rather distasteful. No offense, I hope. Still, he sighed, I find there are times it does need stated. What do you want, then? She said, her teeth clenching. Oh, I think you know, he told her, his smile jeering at her now. You knew I was a demon, and you knew a deal could be struck with me. He sat up straighter now. What do you think I would want? I won't just give you my soul, she said. And I won't just give you what you are asking for free, he sneered. You want more time. You want to go on and live happily and freely at your leisure with no obligation, no consequence, at the cost of something with absolutely no value to me. I decline. She stood up, her anger flaring in her desperation. She pressed her hands heavily onto the table, glaring back at his smug, smiling face. Then take my soul, she snapped. Take it from me when I no longer want it. His eyebrows shot up, his smile tightening. His interest piqued. Just give me more time first. Let me live my life. Do the things that I want, and when I'm done, my soul is yours. He laughed, heartily, taking her hand, his smile twisting into a wicked snarl. Deal. And she was consumed in green.